Okay, before I start talking about the things I dislike about the final shape, I just want to say that I have enjoyed my time with the final shape a lot more than I anticipated because I did not have very high expectations for this DLC. Um, I thought that it was most likely going to be either bad or mediocre, and thankfully, that's not the case, and it's reinvigorated my interest in Destiny 2 because it feels rewarding. And to me personally, Destiny 2 has not felt rewarding to play for a very long time. So I've enjoyed the final shape immensely because of that. But I still have problems. And these are problems that I think a lot of people aren't going to have, but they're problems that still feel like sharing. So the main problems I have are in regards to the story. So there are a few things I don't like. One is the you had to have been there moments in the story, like with Cade and Crow and with Zavala, as well as the actual start of the campaign itself, where it doesn't start exactly where Lightfall ended, and instead it seems like there has been some kind of event that's happened that's put you in the situation you are at the start of the Final Shapes campaign. And obviously, without having played any previous seasons, I don't know what the context is for that. And because of that, there's also no context for Cade Six and Crow and their interactions, and there's no context for Zavala's seemingly random change in character and personality. So all of those elements of the story made it really hard to be invested in what's going on because none of the characters, I don't feel like I can relate to them anymore because they aren't how I remembered them. And so it made it really hard to get attached again to the characters, and because of that, I just couldn't really care about where the story was going. And on top of that, the Witness itself, as an antagonist, I feel does a very bad job of raising the stakes in the main campaign because the stakes are already high for the final shape, right? But I was expecting a further raising of those stakes, something to push you on even further, like in your goal to stop the Witness. But unfortunately, nothing really significant happens, and the Witness actually seems more incompetent by the end of the DLC than he did at the start. And part of the reason for that, and of course I'm going to be talking about the story, so this is going to be like spoilers, but Zavala's ghost dies in the main campaign. And I think that was meant to be an emotional moment, but once again, I wasn't around for previous seasons, so I don't know if Zavala's ghost got fleshed out as a character. So seeing it die didn't really impact me much because I didn't know the ghost even had a name at that point. So having it die after saying like a sentence didn't really mean much to me. And once again, because of Zavala's change in character and personality, on top of voice actor, it made it really hard to empathize with the character because it didn't feel like the Zavala that I knew that, you know, I had spent so much time with. So because of that, I just couldn't really care about that either. And the problem I have is that that could have been a raising of the stakes moment in the campaign, but instead it kind of just gets forgotten and it kind of gets moved to the side, I guess is the good way of saying it, because Zavala doesn't die and he doesn't become grievously injured either. So it doesn't really matter that his ghost is dead because we have examples of guardians living without their ghosts and they're doing just fine. So for me, it never led to anything. And I think that's disappointing because for me personally, I think Zavala should have died at the end of the main campaign. That's what I think should have happened. Zavala should have died simply just because he doesn't have his ghost. that's really the only reason I think that he should have died, because at the end of the campaign, it's Zavala, Cayde, Ikora, and Crow all in a direct confrontation with the Witness, or an avatar of the Witness, and Zavala at this point in time is just a regular guy because he doesn't have his ghost and he hasn't learned darkness abilities yet. So, how is it that the Witness is not able to kill Zavala at this point in time? Instead, everyone is able to run away. But at the very least, Zavala should have been the one to die there, because the Witness shows that it's perfectly, it's still strong because it manages to freeze his ship that's flying in with a wave of his hand. So how is it that he wasn't able to just wave Zavala away out of existence? Because he doesn't have the light anymore. And the Witness doesn't do that, and instead manages to let everyone get away without any damage being done to anyone. So I really don't understand why they made that choice, because it would have been an extremely impactful moment to end the main campaign on, and a driving force to take out the Witness, besides all of the other stuff that the Witness has done, right? It would have been an additional factor in wanting to take the Witness down. Because for me personally, the Witness really hasn't done anything that's motivated me to want to fight it. It's like, yeah, it went inside the Traveler, but that isn't really a good motivation for me anyways, because I don't really like the Traveler. The Traveler isn't a character in the game, it's just your power source. So the fact that the Witness is, taking control of it, it's like, yeah, it's bad, but also we haven't lost the light, and we also have these new powers now, so I don't see what the big deal is. And I think that Amanda Holliday ended up dying, like maybe she got killed by the Witness, but also it's like, to me, Amanda Holliday is just the vendor, the ship and Sparrow vendor, so she doesn't matter to me at all. So the fact that she's dead is irrelevant to me, and any other character that died I am unaware of. So for me, going into the final shape, there was no motivation for me to stop the Witness, because I don't really care about the Traveler, and I don't care about any of the people that the Witness has, killed. So it would have been a great opportunity to get me to care by killing Zavala. Because even though the character still feels so different, it's still a character that, I like, not as much as some other characters, but it definitely would have had an impact, and unfortunately that just doesn't happen. And honestly, the only thing I can think of when it comes to why they didn't kill Zavala is they didn't have a named Titan to replace him, because Saint 14 is the Trials vendor, and they don't want to mess up the Trinity. They don't want to have, only a Hunter and a Warlock, because they want all three, classes being represented, and they just didn't have a named Titan to replace Zavala in the event of his death. That's why I think he didn't die. And the reason that Cayde 6 ends up sacrificing himself at the end of the Excision mission is because, well, he already has a replacement, so they can get rid of Cayde without any trouble, really, because Crow is his replacement. So that's kind of how I felt about both of those situations. And that's another thing. Cayde's revival is something that when I first saw it in the marketing material, I was not happy about. And I'm sure that most people were very happy to see Cayde 6 brought back, but I personally really did not like it, because it was a lowering of the stakes in the Destiny 2 universe. Because when Forsaken was released, it was a massive deal and a huge impact that Cayde 6 was killed. And then, at the end of the Forsaken campaign, you take your revenge for Cayde 6, and Crow, and Aldrin Sov, rather, gets killed. And so, two important characters in the story are dead now. And that had a huge impact. Now, I didn't like it when they reversed Uldren's death and revived him with a ghost. I didn't like that either, because it felt like a lowering of the stakes. And the same is true for what they did with Cayde 6, because once again, it felt like a lowering of the stakes, where, well, it doesn't matter if a character dies, because Bungie can just come up with any excuse they want to bring them back. And I just really didn't like that. It felt very, very Disney-esque, I guess, is the best way I could explain it, where there really aren't that many consequences, and I just don't really like that. I prefer the much darker and grittier stories in Destiny, and with the removal of those kinds of consequences for actions being taken, I just really strongly dislike that. And not only that, the reason for Cayde's revival as well is something that I don't like, because the reason they brought him back was to kill him again. That was the reason they brought him back. They brought him back so that way he could sacrifice himself for your ghost in order to bring it back to life. And I have some problems with that, because, first of all, why does your ghost run out of light? You are inside the Traveler, the being that is basically the creator of the light, or at least the source of it. So, how is it that inside the Traveler, your ghost is able to run out of light? That is something that I don't understand. How is that possible? And yeah, you could say, well, your light simply just absorbed too much light from the Traveler and burnt out. In which case, why is it possible for the ghost to revive at all? So, in that case, the ghost should have stayed dead. And that would have been way more interesting to me. But if that's not the case, then surely there must have been another way for your ghost to revive. It could have simply just passively absorbed all of the light that's inside the Traveler, because everything inside there is made of light or darkness, the parts that are corrupted by the Witness, which is another thing. After you kill the Witness, why doesn't the Traveler just send out a massive wave of light trying to clear the corruption from the Witness's influence, and in doing so, kind of passively revive your ghost? Why doesn't that happen? Because it seems like a pretty good reason, and it would be fitting with how the Traveler behaves, which is as an entity that doesn't care for anyone and doesn't help people. It only helps itself, because that's what the Traveler does, and that's what its existence is like. The Traveler never helps you unless it is a direct benefit to the Traveler. That is the only time it will ever provide any kind of guidance or help. Other than that, the Traveler doesn't do anything for anyone. And that's why, after you defeat the Witness, the main antagonist for of the Traveler, it doesn't help you, because you've accomplished your goal in killing the Witness. And so the Traveler has no more need of you. And so it doesn't revive your ghost, because it doesn't see a need to. You fulfilled your purpose, and now it's abandoning you. So, I just also really don't like that. Instead, I feel like they should have probably done something else with Cayde 6. They should have made Cayde a personification of the Traveler and tried to characterize the Traveler in a way that made it more approachable and easier to understand and comprehend, but they didn't really do that. And because of that, it really just feels like the Traveler is kind of this aloof god that simply just has no care for the people that it's giving its powers to, which also I feel like is pretty evident from the fact that the Traveler gives the light to the Hive, which were in direct conflict with the Guardians, who are currently defending it. So clearly it doesn't really care too much, because it's perfectly willing to give power to the group of people that are currently in the process of trying to eat it, essentially, and destroy it. So, I don't know. Like, to me, that was just a stupid decision the Traveler made, and it's one that I still don't really understand why the Traveler did that. And the reason they gave, to me, doesn't really make a good sense either. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like certain aspects of the story could have been handled a lot better, and obviously that's entirely subjective. A lot of people might think that the story was handled just fine, and that these issues I'm raising are incorrect because they know more about the story than I do. But to me, that's how I feel about these certain aspects of the story. And another thing this is minor, but I really just don't like the Witnesses' design. I feel like they could have done something to make them far more intimidating and a more hard to read antagonist. Because you can see when the Witness gets mad, you can hear it in their voice, and it's pretty easy to tell that it's doing its best to try and manipulate you in the story. And to me, it just seems incompetent at every attempt it makes in trying to stop you. And I don't know, I just don't really like that. I feel like Savathun was a way better villain in that regard when it comes to deception. And I haven't even played the Witch Queen. That's just from stuff I've seen from like cutscenes and the little I hear from Savathun in the actual Final Shape DLC. I feel like she's just a way better villain, and I mean that's kind of another thing. I don't really want to bring it up now, but anyways, the Witnesses' design I don't like. I think they look silly. The unibrow and the giant anime eyes I don't find intimidating, and they could have done something cool with the character design wise. For me personally, I think it would have been way more intimidating if the Witness simply did not have a face, and instead what would happen is the Witness has this giant plume of smoke coming out of their head that is like transforming into faces. And what they could have done is simply just had that, so whenever the Witness is speaking, one of these like ghostly faces appears where the Witness's face should be on just looking at the anatomy. It's like, oh hey, the Witness should have a face here, but it doesn't. But when it speaks, these different kinds of faces will move in the fog and hover over where its face should be, and kind of speak and fade in and out of existence and into different shapes, signifying the different voices that are all speaking as one in the Witness. That would have been a way more intimidating and cooler design than what they went with, which was the unibrow and giant anime eyes. I just think that would have been cooler. But I don't think it's terrible design, but it's just not what I would have preferred, because it's just hard to take them seriously once again, especially since the Witness couldn't even kill Zavala when he's a regular guy. So honestly, that really just made me feel like, wow, the Witness, literally I finished the campaign and this was my thought, wow, the Witness is actually just incompetent and stupid. There's no way in hell they're gonna win. It's not even gonna be close. It's gonna be like a clean sweep from the Guardians. The Witness is toast. He couldn't even kill Zavala when he was a regular ass guy. He doesn't stand a chance in hell against the player. There's just no way. And that's not really a good feeling, I don't think, for the final big bad of this story that they've been building up for so many years. But yeah, those are the aspects of the Final Shape that I really just didn't like. And once again, I don't necessarily think they're bad, but it's just not what I would have preferred, right? And if other people prefer it, I think that's totally fine, because the majority opinion, I think, matters more. But anyway, that's all.